So welcome to From Feels to Skills, putting fandom on your resume. I'm Asia. I am a reporter with the Daily Dot, and I think we all got really excited about doing this panel because in our travels as professionals, we've seen a lot of people asking us, how can we do what you do? And also, I think that there's just a general stigma attached to fandom where people don't actually, much like other areas of where women are sort of entering tech spaces and building their own communities, these communities are often really devalued. And we want to just, talk to you guys about ways that you can actually look and value your own skills, the things that you're picking up from fandom, and how you can use those to build your own careers, whatever they are. So we're going to just start with quick introductions. And, this is me. I'm the fandom reporter for Daily Dot. I was the submissions editor for Big Bang Press, which Alex will tell you all about. I do things like, also for the Daily Dot, I sort of co-run their Tumblr, so I do a lot of gift making, and sort of spontaneously putting photo sets on the internet and getting excited and reblogging things. So we decided to screen cap, because we didn't think we'd have wireless down here. We decided we would screen cap our portfolios to show you what each of our different portfolios look like. It's kind of blurry, but this is what mine looks like right now. It's at asiawrites.tumblr.com, and as you can see, it's got it's just sort of got a hodgepodge of different things because I wanted to showcase I write articles, I also do, essays, I do opinion essays. These are some things I've done in the past, so there are some things from other outlets that I've written for up there. There's an infographic that I actually designed on a tablecloth, and our artist turned it into something really cool. And
is it a top?
Yeah. It's an infographic of all the projects that the Vlogbrothers have and all the ways that they connect to other areas of the internet.
It's about how the Vlogbrothers rule the world.
Yeah. Yes.
Basically.
And it was part of it, and I also wrote the article for it, so it's just fun stuff like that. And yeah, so that's my portfolio, and we're gonna move on next to Alex.
Oh, I'm next. Hi. Hi, I'm Alex Edwards. I am, I guess. How do I describe myself? I'm best known for my work on the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. I was part of the transmedia team that won an Emmy in 2013. I then served as transmedia producer and a writer on the follow-up series Welcome to Sanditon and Emma Approved. All three of those are available to watch for free on YouTube. They're Jane Austen adaptations set in a modern world and using social media kind of naturally in the storytelling world. I'm also a PhD student at the University of Georgia. My research focuses on the early 20th century history of fandom. I'm hoping to kind of rewrite the accepted history of how fandom as we know it now started in the 30s and 40s. I teach first year composition, I teach about fandom, I teach my students how to write through talking about Harry Potter and reading fanfic, and I am the publicity coordinator for Big Bang Press. And our first book is coming out on November 11th. It's called A Hero at the End of the World by Erin Claiborne.
It's amazing.
It's so good.
Thank you guys. It is a YA fantasy satire that kind of builds on the things we all wanted out of Harry Potter and maybe didn't necessarily get, including more racial representation and diverse sexualities and politics as well, which is really fun. And I have some advanced reader copies here, so I think for if you ask a question during Q&A and you want a book, you can have, I have 3 I think, so 3 people, okay? And then do you want to flip to my portfolio really fast?
Absolutely.
Sorry, it takes me forever to introduce myself because I have 800 things. So my portfolio is also hosted on Tumblr, and I have a variety of sort of teaching transmedia projects and writing. And I think my favorite thing that's on my portfolio right now is the clip that says Friends, the t-shirt, is actually my recently finished 50,000 word NC-17 Les Mis fanfic, which is kind of a controversial thing for me to have put on my portfolio, but I want to stand by it because I'm really proud of it.
And I should tell you, I copied from I borrowed a lot of ideas from her portfolio when I made mine, and I also have my biggest Inception fic on my portfolio as well, with actually a rec from her, so which is really nice.
It's a great fic.
So next we have Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I am an internet librarian. I got my MLIS from Rutgers in 2011, and I kind of decided well, I guess we'll get into this later, but I decided that I wanted to study the internet instead of actual libraries, so every class I took, I was like, I'm gonna make this about the internet, and I did. So I previously worked for the website Know Your Meme, where I archived internet culture, and it led to my job at Tumblr, where I'm now on the community and content team. I am also a cat expert, and I know about all of the most famous cats. Grumpy Cat is very soft. Yeah. I'm known colloquially as the meme librarian, which is hilarious. Now, you can flip to my resume. My portfolio is more of a traditional resume on the front, and it's actually part of the reason I got my job at Tumblr, because I hosted it on Tumblr. And I keep my highlights on separate pages, mostly because my jobs are very different from each other, and I have a really funny what people say about me page.
Which I didn't screen yet. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Wait,
It's
you have
like,
to say my favorite, the, what does a meme librarian do?
oh, yeah. It was a tweet, and it was like, what does a meme librarian do? Tell the memes to shh.
She also, like, one thing that I think also probably helped her get a job at Tumblr is that she did her first interview in cosplay.
Yeah, I did like a phone interview for the job, and they were like, can you come in today? And I was like, I'm covering New York City Comic Con right now, and I am dressed as Roxy from Homestuck. They're like, that's fine, come in. So, it was a good time.
Next we have Loraine.
Hi, I'm Loraine. I'm looking at it like I don't know. I'm a technology reporter. I'm the author of 2 upcoming books. One's on hacking the Raspberry Pi, and the other one is on cosplay. Oh, and I wrote a book too that I self-published on being a fan and a journalist at the same time, and how being a fan can help you get a job as a journalist or a writer. I mean, surprise. And I'm also a web designer and web consultant. And can you flip to my resume? Because
Sure.
this is a custom WordPress site. The theme's called Writer's Blocks. Get it? Okay, because it's using a block-like system, and I designed this with a friend from grad school. And I guess so that makes this kind of my site design resume too, kind of like in a subversive way, because I don't know. I guess I get all my web stuff through word of mouth. I mean, I prefer to be a writer full time. And and I also review anime for a place called Anime News Network. So that's my latest job.
Cool.
I'm Loraine, Sammy. I'm, I think, the only artist person on the panel, which is why Asia invited me to this. So yeah, I'm professional freelance and gaming industry artist. I worked at Gaming Industries in Vancouver because that's where I'm from. Also co-founder for Race Spending, so I do both art and I kind of accidentally got into activism because of Race Spending. And that right now I'm the artist interview for Apex Magazine, which is a sci-fi, fantasy, horror magazine, an online magazine. And you added on the moderator for online RPG, that's just for fun. But yeah, that's what really, well, I guess it's a job, because you know what, modding is a full-time job as well. But yeah, and my portfolio does exist, it's the Tumblr, but we didn't have time to put it up. But if you went to it, you would have seen the interviews that I've done for Race Spending, which is the biggest thing, as well as some of the professional art that I've done, logos for conferences, personal commissions, which is, I think, to me, one of the biggest things and one of the most important things that especially artists, fan artists, and female artists can branch into, because it's something that I think is delegitimized in the art community, art industry, whereas to me, I think it's a very valuable profession that a person can happily survive off of if they chose to. So that's what I would like to talk about eventually if we do. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and yeah, that's me.
Cool.
So thanks.
Thank you guys. As you can see, our portfolios are all very different, and there's no like correct guide to how to make your own. And we obviously aren't gonna like be didactic and tell you how to do things here. We're just gonna like tell you what has worked for us and help you find your own way. Is it okay to list fandom skills on your resume?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm gonna
Yes.
scream it from the rooftops. Yes.
Yes, and it doesn't necessarily, like, even if you're applying for something that doesn't have anything to do with fandom or any type of like, one of the most I guess successful jobs that I've had, I got because I put a website that I put 2 different fandom websites that I built, and or like co-built. Like there was a very small Harry Potter project that I built the entire website for, and then there was a much larger project that I had done most of the actual like coding and formatting, not the design for, but just like the basic like actual HTML work. And I put both of these websites on my resume and got the job, and that was like, I had that job for like 3 years. So, and it had nothing necessarily to do with fandom. It was just, I was at the point where I was like, if they ask me about it, I'll just tell them what it is. And they really liked it, they were interested in it, and I think it made a good impression. So you never know. So why is it suddenly, like, is it suddenly okay to put fandom on your resume? Is this something that's changed? Like, what do you guys think? Like, what kinds of factors have led to this sort of our confidence now that we can say, do it and be proud of it and go for it?
The interweb.
Yeah, on the internet, your identity, you can't have 2 identities anymore, your
No.
professional identity and your personal identity, because on the internet, they're gonna just bleed over.
You can,
Yeah.
and some people do, but you don't have to necessarily anymore, I think.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a
I find it really
personal
uncomfortable.
choice.
It is a personal choice, and
It
I
is.
think pseudonymity is really important to respect, but I also, I advocate for owning your interests and your passions, even if they're maybe less socially acceptable. I tweet about porn a lot, and I'm an academic who teaches 18-year-olds, and I work on shows that our main demographic is females aged 13 to 18, but I try to keep it a very clear distinction between the two, and I feel like it's fine because I love porn.
Yeah, I have no distinction at all in my life. My professional, Loraine Space is my professional and my personal. If something feels uncomfortable to tweet about to everyone, I just don't tweet about it. And I mean, I guess that's been helpful for me for setting boundaries between online and offline.
But I do think it's important that, just to go to the slide, the emergence of female-driven spaces, I do feel like a lot of, spending so many years in female-driven spaces was what empowered me to kind of own my passions and capitalize on them professionally. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, do you guys, keep online and then your real names separate when you do online stuff, or is that because you guys are the young people of the future kind of thing? So I'm always interested to know how, people, because it's always changing, right? Like, when I started, obviously, you had to have a net handle, and you never talked about your real name online, and now...
Never met internet strangers.
You never met internet strangers.
Now all my coworkers were internet strangers at
Yes.
one point. It's crazy.
Hey, I just
All
met
of you
guys.
were internet
Yeah,
strangers.
exactly.
So,
But,
show of hands, how many people sort of don't necessarily hide their fandom life from their real life?
Well, there we
Most
go.
awesome. Right. But there are still a number of you who do, and that's totally valid. I'm sort of like Alex, where I went through not the same job that I described earlier, but I also did a 3-year stint where I was tutoring kids on probation, and that was in the middle of my fandom life. I've been a fan since 1999, actually active in fandom since then. So in the middle of that entire 15-year span, I did 3 years where I just had to shut everything down because I was just and I went from being totally open to nope, locked LiveJournal, locked everything, because I didn't want my, it wasn't necessarily about me, it was about the kids that I tutored, And so I think that's, that has to be totally valid. I feel like we have to, the more of us who are out and vocally, fanish, I think the more we can help make it acceptable for those private spaces to exist, and also without, the pressure to be, to come out of the closet, I guess, if you're a fan. Because, I mean, Loraine is right, it is really hard to be, to have separate spaces on the internet these days, because Google hates you, for starters, if you do. Google really wants you to use
who you really are, quote unquote.
Yeah, try leaving a YouTube comment if you don't have your, real name attached to your Google Plus account, yeah, it's awful. But yeah, it's important to be vocal. If you have the ability to be, then yeah, we feel like you should just own what you love.
Yeah, on that note, when I started doing like library conferences, really big names in the librarian community started following me, and then I started getting people in the internet community who were following me, and at one point, like, Jonathan Zittrain followed me on Twitter, and I was like, whoa, I can never, like, tweet about this stuff again. He's a very well-known professor of internet. Yes, but then I was like, you know what, this is who I am. If I want to tweet that I miss Homestuck, I'm going to, because it's a valid feeling that I have, and if I'm going to tweet about this cat, I'm going to tweet about how much I love this cat, and if that devalues me, whatever. I'm an internet librarian.
But
this is my job.
You bring up a good point, Amanda, about like a professor following you, because now that fandom is becoming academic as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many courses, you know, Harry Potter, fanfic, all that kind of stuff is integrated into courses
Yeah.
in lots of universities. So that, in a way, is also kind of being accepted. And then, you know, like Dr. Henry Jenkins, for example, right? Like he kind of has opened up the doors for fandom.
Asia knows him.
In a way, and
Yes, I did a panel with him, and
There's absolutely a changing attitude towards fan works, and a lot of I think a lot of the professionals who are a generation older than us, because we're all I think around the same age, actually grew up in fandom. They were the people in fandom in the generation before us, right? And so for a long time I was really worried that I was still tweeting about explicit slash when I was being followed by Jay Bushman, who was my producer on Lizzie Bennet, and then we did an interview together, and he said in the interview publicly, to the interviewer, not even to me, that he liked my voice on Twitter so much that was why he hired me. And I was like, Jay, I just tweeted about dudes making out. but he was like totally down for that. He was fine with it. The people we think aren't in fandom or know about fandom actually probably do at this point.
You'd be so surprised, like, how many people that you've worked for have their own passions and respect yours.
Yeah.
Like, I had a very corporate job. Like, I had to wear a suit to this job. And I got it because I showed my anime blog to my future boss. And she's like, you just update this all the time, like, no one's telling you to. And it really showed her a lot about my work ethic. And she's like, you make your own infographics? And she's like, it turns out she really geeks out over, like, Russian history. And she's obsessed. And I mean, everyone's a fan about something.
There's a huge
and it makes you relatable.
Yeah, I had this very, very, very corporate job, like, that was just, like, your total office space, like, stereotype. Like, it was awful. Like beige walls, you couldn't hang anything up with, like a custodian, like, guiding you. Like, just very, very, like, you had, like, we had, like, a 72-page dress code. It was awful. But on our floor, like, in my like, little tiny department, we had these, like, quirky people. Like, we had this one guy who would awkwardly come up and ask me for Harry Draco Rex, and we had this other guy who had spent like over 15 years in the military. He was like, I think in the Navy. He would like basically wear dress blues to work every day. He was like in his 50s, black man, very big. He was obsessed with Twilight. His entire cubicle was covered in pictures of Robert Pattinson, and it was just like, it's so wonderful.
And like, Amanda works for Tumblr, so you know, like, brands want to get in on this, like
definitely.
Target and Hewlett Packard.
You'd be surprised. I was just thinking,
Olive Garden, apparently.
so many breadsticks. Our head lawyer, like, who has to, like, work with copyright violations and be very serious all the time, is obsessed with Pokemon. And when Pokemon X and Y came out, like, we got it on the same day, and I was like, give me your friend code. He's like, yeah, whatever. And then by the time I beat it, he was like, oh, I stopped playing that 2 months ago. Like, I already beat it. I was like, I'm ready to play you now. And he's like, yeah, I finished this in like 2 days. And it's weird because, like, he's supposed to be the lawyer in charge of all the really scary things. But just to go back to brands, like, some brands totally kill it because they get it, and they have people on the team who are allowed to explore fandom. The best example is the Denny's Tumblr, and they were just allowed to run with it. And the woman who was the first blogger for it, she's super into internet culture, and she, like, lives and breathes it. She would tweet at like 2 in the morning, and she did so well, Tumblr hired her as a creative strategist. And she's one of the best people I know. Amber Gordon, shout out, love her. But yeah, brands see all the fan activity and they're like, we want that and we want to be there. Yeah. And sometimes they don't get it, and when they don't get it, they really don't get it. The example is Richard the Cat from Home Depot. Do any of you remember Richard the Cat?
Those were awful.
It was awful. And
Why was it awful?
it was like
It
this
was like-
meme generator
Yeah,
thing.
it was very superimposed and false,
Yeah.
basically. It wasn't fun. Like, the thing is that some brands, you will obviously come into Tumblr and sort of, they have this, like, outsider bird's eye view of what Tumblr looks like, and they think, oh, it's memes and cats.
No, they call it memes, don't worry.
It's memes and cats. And we actually wrote an article about how, like, superimposed and awful the Home Depot branding was, because it was just like, here's a cat and he's holding a lightsaber. Get it? Like, it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
that
It's
kind
a
of thing.
saying.
So I think what we're all saying then is that authenticity, I mean, as an academic, I have some problems with the idea of authenticity, but a kind of authentic passion, right, is
Yeah.
really valuable as a skill set. It is a value added to your portfolio, to your resume, to your life, to your work experience, right? As opposed to a falseness, right? So,
Yeah.
so don't
Yeah,
pretend to
seriously.
be a muggle when you're
And
Like-
not.
And
like
also
Asia
to-
and I
to,
oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna, I want us to get off the slide. Which
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I want to bring it back to this idea of female-driven spaces, because we can talk about, you know, our interactions with the powers that be in the outside world all day, but like I think that it's really important to acknowledge that part of the reason that we are more comfortable and that people are acknowledging our passions more is that there are things like the ADA initiative that are actively trying to say, okay, you can be a professional, but also we want to value your other community-driven spaces. So like if you go to an ADA workshop, if you guys don't know what the ADA initiative is, it's basically a nonprofit organization that was founded to empower women in tech. But it also, every ADA like workshop opens its doors essentially to people from fandom, to people from other, you know, types of open source communities, but it's women only, right? So they basically, like, there's this new way, and I think academia and Henry Jenkins, people like that, have also played a huge part in this, of looking at fandom and looking at the value that these women have brought to all the things that they've done. Because I mean, like, the AO3, like the OTW, people literally got together and decided that they wanted their own space, and these were predominantly women who basically just got the money to build their own fan archive because they knew that they needed a safe space that would not suffer from corporate interference. So these kinds
Everybody
of things.
here knows what OTW and AO3 is.
Sorry, sorry. The AO3 is the Archive of Our Own, which is a really cool fan archive. It's mostly, it sort of originated out of Slash fandom, but around the the AO3 grew this nonprofit fandom, nonprofit called the Organization for Transformative Works, and basically the OTW is designed to sort of have like a 5-branch approach to representing fandom to the rest of the world, and it's all about advocacy, archiving and protecting fan works, in order to make it safer for people like us to do fan works and do them without fear of, you know,
Cease and desist
getting a cease and
letters.
desist, or having our website tossed, or, you know, having these things that have traditionally threatened fan works in the past happen to us.
What's the next slide?
So, so what does a fangirl power resume look like? We want to just sort of talk about the kinds of things that we put on our own resumes, and ways that we feel like you guys can look at your own work. And
And we have a worksheet.
We have a worksheet,
Yes.
but I know not everyone has it. Do you want to hand it out?
Yeah, I'll like put some in
Yay.
Thank you, Loraine.
We made you guys a worksheet so we can do an activity together.
So how many of you guys in this room, I guess we should ask for a show of hands, but just sort of like a cry of eyes if you write fanfic. Yes.
Yay!
Awesome.
Wait, how many of you are beta readers?
Yes.
Do we have some beta readers?
I'm
Yes.
a beta reader. I'm a beta reader.
Yay! You're valuable too. We love you.
Are you lurkers? And does anyone lurk?
Yeah, lurkers.
Yes.
Shout out to my lurkers.
We're in a room full, like we're all in meat space together, and you just admitted to lurking. I think that's so beautiful.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, if you're a fanfic writer, obviously there are like really concrete ways you can, you know, list this on your resume. Like, I write, for one thing. And like we said, like Alex and I both list our fan fictions on our portfolio, our works of fanfic on our portfolio. But you can also do other things, like if you're a beta reader and a writer, like as a writer, you have probably wrestled with formatting your text for a website, right, to post it, you know, making sure we've closed all your tags, etc. So you basically have a basic understanding of HTML, right? So don't be afraid to put that down on your resume. Basic understanding of HTML, copy editing, when you're, you know, ready to post and you go over, see if there are typos. Like, these things are valuable, and you've been doing them for years probably, without necessarily thinking of them as skills that you've learned and earned.
Lauren. Oh, I just want to. Wait, no, I just want one.
It's Lori. Lori wants one.
Like,
Right up here.
I'm curious.
Awesome. And what else? What are the? I know we've kind of like written a bunch of stuff out here on the thing, but can you guys think of any other things that you might glean from being a writer of fanfic?
Yeah. Did we miss anything?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Research. You need to know
Mhm.
your
Absolutely.
environment. You need to know the character.
Absolutely.
Research is very.
Yeah, she said research.
Yeah, I mean, you're very familiar with the community, so, I mean, this is something that Asia and I both know is really important. Like, you have to be, like, if you want to be a journalist, you need to be able to talk to the right experts in the community. Like, I used to cover Brony fandom professionally, so I needed to know a guy named Strawberry Shortcake, who ran Equestria Daily. And because that's the main news site for bronies, and I had to bring that, you know, to the mainstream. And I mean, yeah, being in a fandom, so it gives you research skills because you already know who to ask for, like, and who to quote and
Oh,
interview.
it gives you the best networking skills ever, honestly.
Networking, yeah.
I want to hear Jessica's. What's
Yes.
I think that writing fanfic, like, it also gives you a really good understanding of structure.
Yes.
And something that Orlando Jones actually brought up at a panel at Comic-Con is not so much for journalism, but for writing for TV or movies. When you're trying to write a script for a TV show to become a TV show writer, you basically write fanfic for that show. You're writing a spec script based on those characters. And
Yeah,
so-
when you go out for a TV writing job, you write. This is changing a little bit now because more people want pilots, which are original first episodes from you. But for a long time, the practice was that you would submit a spec script. So if you wanted to write for a network drama, you would write a spec West Wing episode that had never happened.
Right.
You had to write it in voice to the time constraint with the act structure that they want and all of that stuff. So absolutely, yes, structure.
Also understand, and also as a writer, just being able to understand another character's voice.
Yes,
That's such a-
character voices are
yeah.
so important. This is the majority of what I did on Lizzie Bennett. I was tweeting in character for 20 different people, right? And I didn't think about it, but I had learned how to do character voice from reading and writing thousands and millions of words, reading millions of words of fanfic. Absolutely.
What about beta reading? Like, I think this is pretty, like, you obviously do a lot of editing and a lot of research too, probably, and formatting. What else? And networking.
Yes. And working to deadline. Everything is
Oh,
working
yeah.
to deadline.
Yeah, and,
Yes. Oh God, yes.
Just learning how to give constructive feedback.
Oh,
yes,
yes.
team,
So
working in teams and giving feedback, absolutely.
Yes, working
absolutely.
in groups, absolutely. I think the next one is artists, and I want Lori to talk a little bit about the whole debate. There's a big debate about whether you should put fan art on your resume.
Is there?
No,
I am curious.
Yes, no, there
Is
absolutely is. I actually just gave a talk recently in the art department at my university,
Right.
and the professor who was organizing it said that he tells all of his students, do not put fan art in your portfolio. And I was like, what is the fine art objection to fan art? But there's a big split.
There's a huge. I mean, it's a huge discrepancy in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I'm not fine art trained,
Right.
so there's a difference between what I always call art for pay versus fine art. Fine art to me defines you want to draw for yourself and for your feelings. Art for pay means you want to become an illustrator, you want to become a concept artist, a comic book artist, whatever it is that you want to do, a game artist, you know, all these kinds of professions that are to do with fan art. And when it comes to professions to do with fan art, to do with art, fan art to me is the way. I mean, most artists who draw for pay They draw fan art and they post it on their DeviantArt, you know, they post it on their own galleries, on their WordPress blogs, whatever it is that they want. And there is absolutely nothing wrong, in my opinion, with posting your fan art. As long as you enjoy your fan art and you're proud of it, put it up there, because nowadays, I think, as you say, because more geeks are becoming, you know, into the professional jobs, it's kind of like a relatable thing. They see you draw, you know, Daredevil, and they're like, okay, well, I love Daredevil, you know, like this is something that I can relate to, and you know, there's an appreciation behind that. So I didn't know that there was a debate when it comes to professionally
Yeah, and
paid.
not to throw this professor under the bus, I think this is he was speaking to across the board, and he wanted to know,
Yeah.
sort of from my perspective, how he
Right.
could encourage his students better.
Right.
But there is, I think, art schools are training students to hopefully work commercially
Yeah.
also, right? And yet they're saying, like, you cannot put, he called it fairies and dragons art, and I was
No.
like,
I
threw
seems a
myself
little
on the
naive, though.
floor and wanted
That
to
is,
cry.
if you look at the history of art, like the history of actual, you know, art history, the world is full of
It's
people
fan art.
commissioning artists to do Bible fan art. I mean,
Also, I was going to say, and obviously Lori can speak to this a lot better, but a lot of commercial work, you have to work to a sort of model. You need to prove that you can accurately represent
Yeah,
the product
exactly.
or the character or whatever, and so your fan art is absolutely a boon to your
Absolutely.
work.
Also, there is a growing number, or a growing pattern or phenomenon of commercial TV, like the Doctor Who, the new Doctor Who sequence, opening credits for Doctor Who, they literally based the new opening credits, if you don't know, off of a fan vid that someone made. Last year, when just this person made this amazing fan vid, and the BBC was like, "We're going to use this."
I hope they
I
got
hope they
paid.
paid, yeah.
Yes, no, I'm sure they did. But
They
like,
hired
it's
him.
just this
Okay.
idea, like
Oh,
people
they
are.
hired him.
Very good.
Yes.
It's very important.
Yes. Very, very important.
Oh, can we talk about working for exposure?
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about working for
Don't ever work for
Oh, I just have a question first. Like, do we have any fan artists in the audience?
Ooh.
Do you guys put fan art in your portfolios?
Yes.
Nice.
We got a split.
And then there's also, I mean, the other thing that I wanted to speak about, sorry, who said something?
I don't really have a portfolio.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Build a
You don't have a
portfolio.
portfolio
Just
yet.
First,
Literally,
first thing to do when you
Create
go.
a Tumblr with your real name and throw all your art up there. That's your portfolio.
And then send me the link.
Yeah, there you go. And the thing is, I mean, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about also is that the mentality when you're an artist is that you have to go find a company to work for. You have to apply to DC, Marvel, whoever it is, Wizards of the Coast or whatever, all the card people, everything. But you can literally make a profession off of just doing private commissions. And networking, which I don't think is there, but networking is your biggest friend. If you're a recluse like I am, you network online, right?
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's great. Like,
Yeah.
okay, see
It is
this,
so easy to network
this
in
thing,
fandom.
I found this guy because he did a picture you might have seen called the Ass Vengers. It's all the Vengers, like, showing the male gaze.
Yes.
Oh, everyone's seen it! Okay, so I saw him, I said, your art's amazing when you do the cover for my book. And I mean, fan art is how I found him and paid him
Yeah.
money.
I mean-
Absolutely. Like the Daily Dot earlier this year did a series of basically geek ads, and we went out and found a bunch of awesome fan artists and asked them if they wanted to get paid to draw stuff, to draw ads for us. So actually, like this one here, like this is actually one of the proofs of one of the ads that we used, which we wanted like a girl who was like sort of like Batgirl by day, by night, like iPod user by day type thing, like to sort of show like that geek, like everyone is a geek, sort of like. And I think the campaign was called Unleash Your Outer Geek or something. But we wanted to work specifically with fan artists. So yeah, there's definite value.
There is.
People are out there who want to work with you.
And the way that, the way that I got the job at Apex was because somebody who worked, the editor-in-chief, I think she's doing the Carol Danvers panel right now. She contacted me because she said, I remember you from Harry Potter. Can you come be an artist interviewer for our magazine? So I haven't drawn Harry Potter in like 10 years or something, you know, but she remembers because that's
fabulous.
that's the network that you create, and
Yes,
and when it comes to online, it really literally is just creating a network in that way. And the way to do it is set your price, turnaround time, and working on deadlines, and always
Yep.
being nice to people.
Yes.
You know, make sure you stick to your deadlines, you know, but you can make a living off of commissions, like literally make a living off of commissions.
Yeah, Tumblr works with artists on the site too. All of the art in our office is Tumblr artists, and we've actually hired Tumblr artists to our creative team, and the brands. We have a creative outreach team, so like if a brand is like, hey, we're The Voice, and we want someone to illustrate this Lorde song, we want gifts in the background. This artist, Cindy's, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, she's amazing. She illustrated the Lorde lyrics, and they were on national TV, and it was beautiful, and we love being able to give people these opportunities.
Which actually segues really nicely into gift making. If you guys don't, I don't think we cannot overstate how, I guess, how hot a commodity gift making is right now.
Yes.
I was recently doing some sort of research. There was, I did an article on some sort of humorous, job ad that went out on some professional network, and it was like, we just want you to make gifts. It was like a full-time job making gifts, and and I thought that we thought it was sort of corny, but at the time, like, I went through LinkedIn and I went through some other things, and I just searched for the word GIF, and I got like thousands of results.
My favorite is
people
when they
just
ask
want you
for
to make
live
gifts.
gift makers. So like
Yeah.
sporting events and things like that want
Yes.
people who can make live gifts, like turn them around right that second, which I think is just the idea. I'm a live gift maker.
We actually have a guy on our staff who does make live gifts during sporting events, and we put them on our Tumblr, and they're really successful. So for him to be able to say that he can do that is huge. I mean, you know, he just started doing it for fun, but I mean, he actually like created for himself this amazingly relevant job skill right now.
Do we have any graphic artists or graphics makers in the audience?
Yes.
A couple, yeah.
And that, also the programs that you use obviously can be put onto your resume. And one thing that I always wanted to say, that I learned resume making is putting so many years experience. So plus, if you're 23 and you've been making gifts since you're 13, 10 years gift making experience. Like literally, and people will be impressed by that because, and you have been doing it for 10 years, you know, that is the thing that's totally legit, and it looks impressive because it's like 10 years.
It's just amazing how much of this stuff is magic to a generation above us.
Yeah.
Like, I was wearing a USB stick around my neck once, and someone said, that's a beautiful necklace. I didn't know this is the photos I took for the story tomorrow. And he said, they must be so tiny.
So we only have 12 minutes left.
Oh,
and
no.
I want to get to our activity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Activity time.
So we may not have time for the activity if we want to do questions. We just have a lot of feelings. So I call it feels the skills. So bidding obviously is the same principle as gift making and art making. Like you have these skills. For bidding, it's like an audio remixing too. Like they're especially complex, and you especially work with a lot of intense software. Do we have any bidders in the audience? Yes.
Yeah.
You guys are in great professional shape, honestly.
Yeah. Technical stuff.
Yeah, always list your software is a really good recommendation no matter which materials you're doing. Like I always list, like I do a lot of audio mixing and a lot of audio like recording and stuff, and I always put Goldwave on my resume and Audacity as two of the software pieces that I work with. Because people it's just that much more impressive. Oh, I do Photoshop, but I also do Audacity. People are like, ooh, like, you know, it's just, you know, everything you can do. Every little bit helps. And finally, we also wanted to acknowledge that a lot of people out there in fandom are, you know, the movers and shakers in terms of like moderating, building forums, project managing. You know, there are all kinds of people, like if we have any OTW volunteers here, they have like hundreds of volunteers just for people running the you know, doing tag wrangling on the AO3 and so forth.
And let's not forget in-person versions of this. Like if you're a volunteer at Geek Girl Con.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and one thing I think we left off here is cosplay, but holy crap, cosplay? Like you guys have all kinds of skills in fashion and design, and you know, working to deadline.
And working with different materials.
Yes. And so I hope you guys can just sort of get the gist of what we're trying to say, which is don't be afraid to really analyze your skills and see what you actually do on a daily basis as part of fandom, and figure out how you can cull those things. So do we want to do the brainstorming worksheet, or do we want and sort of build a resume, or do we want to take questions?
Yeah, and if anyone has questions about how to recontextualize their Fanish skills onto the resume, then we can like work that in. Does that sound good to you guys? Okay, so questions?
Oh,
Do you need a microphone? Can I just sit down?
Yeah, I think you can just sit down.
Yeah, it's pretty simple panel.
And our first three question askers get to let me know if they want a book.
Okay, I want to, she says I should say yes.
You should say yes to the book.
I know, I'm
It's a really good book.
I'm really excited. Okay, sorry. My question is about sort of branching from the resume into like actually interviewing and meeting with potential employers, and sort of how to broach the subject of fandom. Because I find myself like using the loftiest possible language, and being like, I'm involved in an online community of artists.
That's a great question.
That is a great question. I tell everyone that my NC-17 Les Mis fanfic is a novel-length queer remix of Les Miserables. Which sounds really great.
I just tell people, I just explain to people what fan fiction is, and I explain that it has a really long history behind it. Like, I don't know if you guys, I have a pretty popular post that basically points out how fan fiction is basically exactly like every other recursive story that's, won Pulitzer Prizes throughout the years, like Jane Smiley's 1,000 Acres, which is a fanfic version of a modern AU fanfic of King Lear, like that kind of thing. Like, and I just point out how all this stuff is completely blasé because people have been doing it. So when I often interviews, like I explain this, and then I talk about my own fanfic, and it's no big deal.
I think you have to spend a little bit of time. I mean, you need to prepare for job interviews anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's like the most horrifying part of the process. But I think part of what you have to do as a fan then is to think about what language you're going to use, and how, spend some time actually brainstorming what's your elevator pitch for fandom. How would you explain it in one sentence? I think that will serve you really well when you go into the interview. Sit down and write. I recommend for everybody that they write things out. Don't just think them in their brain, because I think it's very helpful. So write out how you would explain fanfic to like the most corporatist muggle you could possibly imagine. And memorize it then. Memorize your one.
It's just metaphors, like if it's a shipping company. No, that's terrible, but
FedEx.
I saved the OTP for the second interview.
And also knowing your audience, right? So if you're interviewing at a law firm and it really seems like they're not into it, then maybe downplay it a little bit more.
Okay, so the girl in the back, the girl in the gray, or you? Yes.
So one of the things you said was put everything up, get a Tumblr under your own name, but what if, like these two young girls, their parents don't want them to be online under their own name? Can you do something like create a pseudonym and then own it later when you become an adult?
Absolutely.
Is that sort of
Absolutely.
what you recommend? Okay.
Yes, and you can also, like Alex said, you can couch your skills in different language that don't necessarily point to fandom. If you want a job right now, you don't want to wait until you're 21.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, I think we all have. I think that all of us on this panel have handles that we started when we were when it was more acceptable to just be pseudonymous in fandom, and then we went and owned them later. So, like Amanda's the meme librarian. I'm non-modernist. Asia's been bookshop for like a bazillion years, right?
And I'm lucky
so,
because I get to be bookshop on like every, like for some reason no social media platform ever has bookshop taken when I go there, so it's just like
yeah, so I absolutely think for younger people, I think it's absolutely fine to pick a handle that is appropriate and that really represents your personal sort of whatever it is, interest or whatever, and then later on link it to your real name.
And who knows, that could be like your company name later on. Like I know an artist who started a clothing line, and she uses her pseudonym as the name of the clothing line, Omocat.
But just choose your pseudonym. I'm sorry, I want to get through as many questions as possible.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, so it sort of goes back to the interview side of things. Like, I noticed in my last job interview, we ended up talking about drunk history. And, like, what seemed like a super, like, appropriate suits and ties interview, and it just ended up being a reference. I was just wondering if you guys have run into anything in terms of, like, reading the room, in terms of, like, if it's appropriate to bring things up as skills. Are there any times where you found that it's not appropriate to bring things up?
I usually wait for them to bring it up first,
Yeah,
or hint at it first, or ask me about a certain piece of art first, because then I don't know, it's about reading social cues, right?
Yeah.
Like you can see someone kind of wink, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, so tell me about
Right.
this piece of art, you know? So, and that kind of gives you an indication of, well, you know, I really love Harry Potter.
I usually find, like, this is just my experience, but and I've been out for a very long time, and I was out because I was basically forcibly outed when I was in Harry Potter fandom, so my choice was to own it. But because of that, I just decided I would represent fandom as positively as I could, and I found that when I did, people would, like, their ears would perk up. Like, once you brought up the topic, suddenly everybody wanted to talk about it, like, and there were always, like, one or two fans in the room who've been like, oh my god, you know, I really want to talk about this thing with you, can we, like, you know, hang out later and talk about it? Like, just people don't think that they can talk about it, and when you give them permission to, they get really excited. Girl in the back.
I have a question about formal academic training. And I was wondering, do you guys, in your personal experience, find that it's worth it to go through a program like that? Or are there other ways that you can acquire
What kind of
Yeah.
program are you thinking of?
creative writing or art programs? I mean, how many of these skills can you acquire outside of that? And is it really necessary to try to go through one of those?
I am.
We all have like a master's.
I think a
around
lot
here,
of us,
right?
a lot of us on this panel have at least master's degrees, if not. I mean, I'm getting my PhD, obviously. I am actually really opposed to the MFA circuit.
Yes, I am also.
I don't think that it's worth going to get an MFA unless they will pay you to go.
Yes.
And then you get to take some dedicated time for your writing where you're also getting paid. But I think you have to weigh, my recommendation for everyone who's interested in some academic training is that you have to weigh the funding and don't pay out of pocket. I think don't pay out of pocket for an advanced degree.
Yeah, I got a scholarship for my master's, and it was useful because it was in the town I wanted to work in, so it was good for networking.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's exactly it. Like, it's good for networking, and that's pretty much it. If you're a networking kind of person, do it for networking, but you're paying to network, and you can network for free online, right?
But you can find programs that will pay you.
Oh,
So, you and then Joker.
Hi, I want a book. This is I mentor kids very low income, and I noticed last week that some of the kids that are into Fandom and they're artists. They draw these fantastic drawings. Do you guys can give me a suggestion how to, because I'm gonna be honest, this is my first time here and I'm not a Fandom, but this has been so awesome experience. How to advise these kids, because they're low income and everything, how to mentor them to find the network that they need. There are teenagers between 13 and 15, so of course they're still not into networking, but it would be nice to start giving that direction.
If they want it for free, the easiest way is DeviantArt and Tumblr. Those are the two ways to get your art out there, but they have to make sure that they're responsible responsible posters, because the last thing you want is for somebody to steal their art or reuse it without their permission. So they have to be in control of their art. Always sign your art.
Yes.
Always sign your art. That's one thing to tell them.
That's the kind of thing where they can like go to the library and sign on to the computers and use the internet, wherever it is that they can get internet access, and post to DeviantArt and Tumblr for free.
And I think libraries have scanners and stuff too.
Yeah.
So if they,
Yes,
you know,
they
if
do.
they're drawing it in paper, they just scan it and then they can put it up on Tumblr, put it up on DeviantArt, and make sure that they know to own their art.
And if you get a Tumblr account, you can go and search, like Tumblr has a search engine that will let you search for the things that they like. So if they're into Pokemon or whatever, you can enter Pokemon or, you know, Transformers. And Tumblr is like it's Amanda's thing that she has. She'll, like, the results will pull back the top, most recent top results. So they'll get to see examples of all these other wonderful people doing, fan art of the things that they like.
And the nice thing about DeviantArt is they can talk to other people.
Yes.
Tumblr, not so much. But DeviantArt, there's forums for them to discuss stuff.
Tumblr also has community tags. The most important one is artist on Tumblr, and if you wanted to go to that tag and just see what other people are doing, you could there are some great examples of what your blog should look like and how you should interact with other people.
Okay, so we have, I think, time for one more question from the Joker. And then if you guys want to, like, we can probably stay after outside and answer some more questions for you guys.
Ask me all the questions.
Do you guys find that some of these skills are more useful for jobs that you're doing online versus jobs where you like go to an office? And if it's jobs that you're able to find like in the real world office space, do you find that it's really more in certain cities or regions that's more applicable?
Not really. I mean, I guess I live in New York now, but before I lived in Norfolk and then previously Bloomington, Indiana. And Bloomington was a little special because it had a very like networked, it was in a college town that had a very good university like computer program sort of system. But the job that I got that took me to Norfolk was one that actually started in Bloomington, then we transferred, and it was the corporate office that I told you about, and it was it had nothing to do with Fandom. It was just it was working with the internet, but it was also doing a lot of like project management for apartment companies because we were making their websites. So we dealt a lot with like payments and account managing and as well as like graphic design and art and internet architecture. It was really like a messy like type of thing that I did.
I feel like so many jobs now, I was gonna say all, but maybe like hashtag not all jobs. But so many jobs now use the internet anyway, even if you're in the office, and they use computers, you know what I mean? So all these skills that we developed in networking online and being online all the time are skills you can take into an office environment. But also like I do all of my web series work from Athens, Georgia, which is like a rural town an hour and a half outside of Atlanta.
It's very close to where I am.
Oh, okay, great, yeah. But so I mean, I'm on Skype and email with LA every day, but I don't need to be in LA, you know.
Right. And we do we have offices in LA, Austin, New York, and we have satellite writers in Scotland and London and Seattle and Portland. So it's just like and one of our managing editors in Portland, and he just like runs everything from his home, you know. So and I think too that it's important to emphasize that like project management skills, like really general skills that you guys get from just being in Fandom, like networking and editing and proofreading and working to deadlines, those are really universal skills.
Yep, absolutely.
So
thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank
We're like
you.
so out of
So
time, but
much.
come up and talk to us if you want, or we'll go outside.
yeah, thank you. Oh, and don't forget to get a book.
Yeah, and Tumblr stickers.
Yes,
Tumblr.